We're Renee
and Courtney, your online sisters, and we're on a mission to help women across the world become the best version of themselves through the power of sisterhood.
That's why we've written To My Sisters, a guide to building lifelong friendship.
From working out how to achieve your dreams to setting boundaries and managing expectations, this essential handbook will show you how to fully embrace the power of friendship and community.
Packed with practical advice and personal stories from our decade-long friendship, we'll give you all the tools and advice you need to find, make, and keep lifelong friendship.
To My Sisters is available now online and at all good bookshops.
We've definitely come into a place in society where we've normalized non-consensual infidelity.
Yeah. If a woman is like, I'm going to start playing this game, they're going to be kicked off the board.
Yeah, 100%. Do monogamous relationships, work, and do they work out in this society? Is there a rota for sex?
Do you get what I mean?
Hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Renee.
And I'm Courtney, and we are your online sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
Now, we are all about promoting the wellness, growth, and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's conversation, we are going to be talking about polygamy. We alluded to it slightly in our last conversation about marriage and whether marriage is worth it for the modern day woman. But we have seen the rise of a new trend. Well, it's not new. A trend as old as biblical times, if you will.
It's been illegal in some places too.
No, they're still legal in some. Polygamy, being in a serious committed relationship with more than one person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But my question today is not whether it's right.
Stop it, you've started already.
It's not whether it's right. It's rather, does it actually benefit women? Yes, because I saw a TikTok live.
Yeah.
I personally think TikTok live should be made illegal. I hate it.
I can't believe there's such a thing. This is
TikTok,
news to me.
No, but like when you're scrolling through your For You page, do you not see people who are just online? I need to find whatever setting you have on, because I have never sat there and watched the TikTok live.
Really?
I think it's dead most times.
I can imagine.
Anyway, I saw a TikTok live. Well, no, actually, this was a screenshot of a TikTok live.
Okay.
So there we go. That's why I found it. Of a British girl asking an American guy who is in a polygamous relationship with multiple women, as you often see, what actually qualifies you to lead multiple women at the same time in such a way? And do you know what he did in response? He stood up from his chair and he just stood there in silence, and he went, "Look at me." And he didn't say it, but that was the posture. And she was like, I ain't seen much.
I've regarded, and yet I have yet to see what is the qualification here.
P for problem.
Oh.
So I then thought to myself, wow. And then she basically said these women that were on camera with him, his two wives or girlfriends, that they should be very careful, because this man's showing narcissistic tendencies. And they were just sat there silent, rolling their eyes and basically dismissing what she was saying. And in my head, I thought, as the woman whose partner this is, who you share with multiple people, how do you feel? Does this actually benefit you to be in a polygamous relationship? Or is it for the male ego? So we're going to delve deeper into that, basically. That was the longest intro ever. But some housekeeping. We haven't actually recorded since we became authors.
Ow.
We are authors.
You know how all the girls be going,
purr. Genuinely, sisters, thank you. All we can actually say is thank you. The book went live, so in bookstores and everything, March 9th.
Bookstores and everything. And I want to tell you that we peaked at number 3 on Amazon bestsellers for friendship.
And I know some of you are going to come out here and be like, oh, number 1 soon come, guys, pray. Because the number 1 and number 2 spot is held by a strong giant.
The Boy
which
and
is
the
The
Bowl.
Boy and the Bowl. Which is a storybook about a boy and a bowl, and it's about friendship, but it's still, is it about human friendship? We don't
Technically,
know.
we are number 1 for human friendships, for real life friendships.
But Amazon doesn't recognize that category.
Amazon said, I'm sorry, but the boy and his friend the mole
have trumped your sisterhood.
There we
go.
We need the sisters to rise and shine,
and buy about 1,500 copies of this book.
Thank you. God bless you.
Individually each.
God bless you. Thank you.
But genuinely, thank you. Like, charting in 24 hours was absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
And by God's grace, we'll continue to climb up those rankings, not just in the UK, but internationally.
Right.
So honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we say thank you. Thank you to everybody who came to our launch event as well. The book launch was so amazing. Shout out to Tolly T from the Receipts podcast for coming and interviewing us with some of the most amazing, thought-provoking questions and just very humorous conversation.
Honestly, it was such a pleasure, a privilege. We had a great time, and it was just so beautiful to see everyone come out for the sisterhood. Yeah. Not only did we have the sisterhood come out, but we actually had our own friends and family come out to support us, which was just pinch me moment. Honestly, beautiful, but so grounding, because, you know, we come on this podcast and we write in this book about sisterhood and community, and it was just so beautiful. It was a full circle moment to be able to celebrate that with everybody, but also celebrate with our actual real life community, friends and family. So sisters, friends, family, thank you so much for your support so far. This is literally the tipping point of the sisterhood.
Yes.
We are getting ready. We are dusting off our feet.
Genuinely, sisters, this is just the beginning. We have been in celebration mode and rest mode as well, because it has been a hectic time.
Absolutely.
And we've had to balance everything else that's happening in the TMS world as well as in our lives. But honestly, the work is just beginning. As much as we're celebrating the book, you guys already know when it comes to TMS, the book ain't all we are. But To My Sisters, A Guide to Building Lifelong Friendship, if you will, is a manifesto for the fundamentals that we believe in here over at the sisterhood. Okay, so definitely go and pick up your copy if you haven't, and buy one for a friend, especially if you're trying to build intimate relationships in your life with other women. They are important, they are necessary. Okay, but what else is going on in the TMS verse, you may ask yourself? Many a thing.
Sound the alarm.
Literally sound the alarm. So, international trips, girls, the applications are coming in hard and fast, and a lot of our trips are almost fully booked up. So if you do want to get in an application, please click the link in our description. The spot is unlimited. We wish we could take all of you with us, but please send in your application, because it is done kind of on a, what do you call it? A rolling basis. We accept people on a rolling basis. So we are still accepting applications, but the spaces are nearly filled. So if you want to come with us to Bali, South Africa, Ghana, New Orleans, you need to fill in the application form.
Fill it in ASAP.
If you have not seen how much fun we had in Tanzania, I don't know.
Honestly,
I don't want you to miss out on the next one.
Honestly.
Okay? So yeah, definitely check out that link in our description. It will also be in the show notes if you are listening to us on podcast streaming platforms. I think that's all the housekeeping.
I believe it is all the housekeeping. Is there anything else?
I think the silence is loud enough. No. So,
ain't got nothing else. Of course,
let's get back to our sisterly duties. We have a ding
dilemma.
Let's go. Hi sisters, love from Maryland, USA. My auntie lives in Maryland.
So does mine.
I feel like most
Africans have migrated to Maryland.
Shout out to Dallas. Shout out to y'all.
Shout out to the diaspora.
I am having a hard time releasing shame from past mistakes and bad choices. I turned 27 years old recently, and I've been reflecting on my life and where I want to be in the next few years. And the truth is that I feel very behind for my age. I am still struggling to build my career. I am not yet where I want to be financially. I am still trying to find myself and learn who I am, as well as my purpose in life. And it feels really hopeless. I am struggling with the shame of not being further along for my age due to past mistakes in college and not having chose a marketable degree. I feel that because I had such a hard time with low self-esteem growing up, that now that I'm older, it feels like I was stuck in a place for so long that catching up is strenuous. I know people say all the time that nobody ever really has it together, but I find it hard not to compare my journey with others. Sisters, how can I learn to release shame because of where I am in life and instead adopt a more positive attitude even in times of uncertainty? P.S. I really love the TMS podcast. You guys have really helped me so much, and I am grateful for all you have given to us.
Oh, girl.
Sending you loads of love.
Loads and loads of love, first and foremost. And thank you for being a sister. Like, we always adore hearing from our sisters, even when it is during tough times, when you are going through all sorts of different things. And I love the fact that you've actually brought up shame. It's something we talk about quite a bit on this podcast, and something that we talk about in our conversations as well, insofar as shame being one of the biggest things that hinders us from really progressing and moving forward, because it prevents us from, first of all, giving ourselves grace. It prevents us from building our self-esteem, and it prevents us from, you know, really acting with boldness, fearlessness, and the courage that we really deserve when it comes to pursuing our goals. When it comes to dealing with shame, the first thing that I would definitely recommend is sitting with that discomfort and really trying to process through those emotions, really understanding why it is you feel shame about some of the mistakes that you have made. I know you've kind of touched on the fact that you wish you were further ahead, and you attribute your lack of forward progression to that shame around, you know, the past mistakes that you've made. But I think there's something to be said around sitting down and reckoning with those mistakes, right? Or if they are mistakes, quote unquote, because when we think about people's journeys and think about our livelihoods, they aren't necessarily a linear progression in the way that we always want them to be. So really sitting down with your mistakes and saying, okay, cool, I put my hands up, I made the mistakes, this is what I've learned from it, and these are the lessons that I can carry with me moving forward. So very much having that perspective shift and thinking about what can you learn from your mistakes, what has helped you to learn more about yourself moving forward, what has and what can inform the way that you engage with yourself and the other things that you want to achieve in your life moving forward. So taking the positive spin on it. We often refer to it as a glass half full as opposed to a glass half empty. So we've already established that half of the glass is empty, but what are you going to do with the remainder of the glass, which is half full? And really trying to cultivate a more positive mindset around the experiences that you've had in the past is really, really important. Another thing that I would say is really vision casting. So thinking about the things that you actually want to achieve in the future, and then having the practical steps that will support you in making those correct decisions, or the decisions that are in alignment with the kind of person that you want to be. So you mentioned in terms of some of the goals that you have, financial goals. You've also mentioned a little bit of just in general about the things that you'd like to achieve, really being practical and laser focused on these are the things that I want to achieve, and then giving yourself a time frame that is realistic and also allows yourself grace. It's so unfortunate that we're often the most harsh critics and the harshest juries and judges when it comes to our own mistakes. So it's really, really important to, even as you are vision casting, even as you are moving forward and progressing, even as you are identifying the kind of like practical steps that you want to take when moving forward, it is giving yourself some opportunity to really bounce back, right? Really giving yourself some opportunity to have some grace and have some leeway. Another thing that I would say is, as much as it can be tempting, you know, the 20s are a really strange decade where there are some people that, you know, have the 5 kids and the husband and the picket fence. Ooh, whereas
damn, it's true.
Yo, we have some in our own group where it's like folks be out here, you know what I'm saying? It's a really strange decade where it feels as though some people have really settled down in terms of what they have in their lives right now. Some people may have really, really furthered their, you know, their professions rather, and their careers and whatnot. Some people are traveling. Some people are, you know, they in a garage somewhere and they going through it. And these things are normal. I think what's really important is to understand there isn't necessarily a right way that is standardized for everybody, but there is a right way for you after you've defined what that is. And I think that, you know, being 27, trust me, sis, there is still opportunity for you to really grow, cultivate, and move towards your goals. It was funny because at the actual live show, 27 was the age that Tolly T, shout out to her, she has a whole bucket of wisdom on this. But 27 was the age that she said is going to be a really weird one, where it feels like things are really being shaken, right? Not just externally, but also internally, right? Things are going to be shaken. Your value systems are going to change. Things around you, people around you are going to change. And it's very much around, can you still stand even in the midst of this change? And can you still progress and work towards those things in a positive manner? So I definitely say, don't be alarmed by the fact that you are quote unquote behind. In fact, I would reframe that completely and say, you're not necessarily behind, you're just going through a different season. Seasons are different, you know, seasons can be quite different depending on the person that you are, and that's okay. It's okay for you to want to pursue things in a different order to other people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are behind. It just means that the sequencing is different. So embracing the fact that your sequencing for your life may be different to somebody else is really, really grand. And then the last thing that I would say is probably community. I think that just by virtue of having friends with such different backgrounds and different sequencing allows me to understand and know, okay, first of all, I'm not the only person that's going through that sense of feeling as though they're behind, but also the grass isn't actually always greener on the other side of that picket fence, right? With every decision comes responsibility, and understanding that even as you are progressing towards your goals and, you know, you have ambitions and you're working towards this, it will come with a new level of responsibility. It will come with a new level of, needing and requiring you to grow and being able to manage these kind of things. So understanding that, you know, it's very much around the sequencing. It's very much around giving yourself the grace right now where you currently are at, leveraging the people that you have around you to really get a nuanced perspective of what it means and what it feels like to do this adulting thing in different areas, and even leveraging the wisdom of the people that you feel are doing really well around you, right? So the folks that may be doing really well financially, or the folks that may be doing really well in their relationships, actually sitting down with them and saying, yo sis, like, I see you're doing really well in this particular area. Do you have any advice? Do you have any resources you can share? And cultivating a communal mindset when it comes to succeeding will definitely be helpful. But yeah, sis, shame is such a big thing that hinders women so much. And it's one of those things that you have to consistently work on to be able to overcome, because shame is something that it feels like you carry internally, and to be able to process through that, it really is giving yourself permission to overcome and really giving yourself permission to be bold, fearless and courageous when it comes to pursuing your dreams. But I have nutted on.
No, that was perfect advice. That's literally everything that I was going to say. I would definitely encourage you, sis, that one of the biggest things about shame is it has us dwelling so much on the past and what could have been done differently, but you cannot hold yourself prisoner to that. You can't go back and change the decisions that you made. They have been made. And at the end of the day, we have all made some bad decisions in our lives, which definitely come and haunt us in the middle of the night. And 27 is not an age, to be fair, there is not any age where you cannot redeem yourself, where you cannot experience a redemption of time. And when all things that you feel like may have been lost or you may have missed out on cannot come back your way, but it takes you kind of diverting your attention towards the future. And that's the one thing that shame can really rob us of, our focus on the future. So honestly, like, if you need to write a letter to yourself that says, listen, these are all the things that I'm going to forgive myself over, then do that. If it takes you writing down some affirmations or some prayers which you recite to yourself, or you pray on a daily basis, just letting you know that you are not held hostage to your past, but actually you have the capacity and the ability to move forward, then do it. And I think one of the things that can be very crippling is not trusting your decision-making skills, because in the past you may have made bad decisions, and it kind of paralyzes us from wanting to move forward because we're scared that we will sabotage ourselves or we will be incapable of choosing the right thing. But sis, for the simple fact that you have identified that this is a problem and sent us this email and you're plugged into the podcast and wherever, you are moving in the right direction, and you are more than capable of redeeming your future, and more than capable of sitting down and thinking of a strategy that allows you to wake up every day and say, listen, I'm going to go and get it. Whether it be the financial, professional, relational goals you have, whatever goal you have surrounding your life, wake up every morning and just remind yourself, I'm moving forward. I have to move forward. And so make sure that your time is occupied with things that are quite productive. In terms of your professional development, it could be because you haven't picked a career which maybe is gaining you employment right now, or is full of loads of opportunities right now. It's never ever too late to go back to educating yourself. It's formally, right? Whether that's picking up a skill, going and doing a course, going and getting a master's degree. And I know these things sound really hard and big, but if you're going to change your life, it takes making hard decisions and making big changes. And so I think it's important for you to realize that these things will not overcome you. They will not kill you, but they are going to need to be done, you know, whether that's going to, like I said, acquire more qualifications, or going to get more experience, or just getting in tune with, okay, maybe you don't want to go down this route anymore, or well, firstly, maybe you do want to go down the route of what your educational background is. What are the other non-traditional opportunities in that same sphere that you could leverage your degree to be able to do? Does that make sense? So if you studied English literature and you've been trying to, I don't know, become a writer for so long and it's not working out, maybe you can start off as a journalist. Maybe you can start off as a teacher. Maybe you can do something that keeps you in that sphere. Maybe you can do a couple workshops for some people or some organizations, or write for a blog or a company's copy. So it's really thinking, okay, what avenue have I not tried to go down? But if you've exhausted every avenue and it's just not fitting, or maybe you just don't want to pursue this thing anymore, it could be worth doing a career pivot. And I think 27 is a great time to do a career pivot.
Absolutely.
So really and truly use your time and your energy and whatever, you know, you have in your life right now, your community, and your knowledge to really help propel you forward, because your future is bright. You just have to go there and seize it. You have to go there and really bask in it as well. And you can't do that if your lens is constantly focused and your attention is constantly focused on the past and the things that you did not do. Do not let shame rob you of your future. You made mistakes, so you view them as mistakes. You made mistakes, but they can easily just become lessons, and you take those lessons and you move forward. So I think the key word here is exactly what Renee mentioned: reframing. You may need to reframe your youth and how you spent it. But sis, we actually wish you the ultimate best. If you do realize what you practically need and you know this is your dilemma, send us an email and we'll see if we can put you in contact with someone, because we actually have a few people who message who are like, I offer consultation services or life coaching services or helping people find their career. So if we can connect you to someone in the sisterhood who can really help you practically walk out that path, we can do that. It just takes us putting out one Insta story. We can't do it for everybody, please. I said, if this is your dilemma.
Hey.
Thank you very much.
The lady from Maryland.
Hallelujah. Okay. So yes, we would love to help you practically as well once you become aware of your practical needs. So yes, sister, we appreciate you for being plugged into this sisterhood. We are here to support you, even just virtually, but we hope that you do surround yourself with people and have these kind of conversations with them offline so they can provide you with that in-person support. Even if it's just to be a sounding board, you need somebody, girl. So we love you. Appreciate you. Thank you for sending in your dilemma. If you have any dilemmas you want to send it to dilemmas@tomysisters.com. Try and keep it short and concise. You can also fill in the contact form on our website, tomysisters.com. Yeah, that's how you can reach us.
Absolutely. Keep it to 150 words, ladies.
Preferably. So, into the conversation about polygamy.
How do I exit the chat right now?
You can't. You're a co-host of the podcast.
Oh, damn. I forgot. I forgot.
Polygamy. So, why do you think there's a resurgence or a seeming resurgence of polygamy in the modern day time we live in?
I think because first of all, a lot of like social media, there's a lot of cyclicism in social media. Ooh, in that, you know, I'm real sophisticated with it.
Cyclical. It's cyclical.
It's cyclical. And just talking about the proverbial, you know, kaleidoscopic. You know, people that do that.
It's one of my greatest.
You know when people do that, you know,
it's actually one of my greatest pet
unnecessary verbosity. It's like
stupid.
Using a couple of words that are cool, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You are sophisticated.
Yeah.
Using too many, it's like I have no idea what you're talking about, and it's actually inaccessible. But whatever. But yeah, back to the why, you know, there's been a resurgence, quote unquote, of polygamy. I think that, the nature of social media things that we see that are apparent in society are very cyclical in nature. So we see lots of trends, dare I say it, come up again and again in social media, fed to us at different times, but also for different generations, right? So thinking about the different generations that exist, the millennials, the baby boomers, the Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, all different people that are engaging in social media at different times means that they come and encounter different types of, you know, social trends or social media things or kind of like social organizational elements and whatnot on a cyclical basis. But I think what's really interesting about polygamy coming up right now is off the back of our conversation last week where we were talking about divorce, and we've also, spoken about infidelity and the perceived rise of infidelity, I think that social media is shining an important light on relationships in general, romantic relationships. And I think what's really interesting about polygamy is it's an opportunity for us to explore whether having multiple partners actually works, especially if it's consensual. Because I think that we've definitely come into a place in society where we've normalized non-consensual infidelity.
Yes.
It's a very normal thing to hear this person has been cheating with this person, or this person is a side chick, this person is a main chick, and all those kind of different conversations that we have and we've had for generations. But I think what's really interesting about polygamy, and what's actually important about polygamy, is it offers something that's different. It gives us food for thought. It allows us to really explore, does this work, especially in Western society? And does this work for many people now? It also means that we have to really think critically about some of the truths that we hold dear to us and why we hold them as truths. So, for us, we are women of faith. We believe in monogamous relationships. But it does pose a significant question, which is, do monogamous relationships work, and do they work out in this society? So I'm not surprised to see the whole, polygamy, polygamous relationships. Let's have the conversation. Can they work? Especially because oftentimes I see back and forth on social media, but also in person, right? With lots of different men, or for example folks that actually really want to be with different people, there is a social fear or some kind of social stigma attached to having multiple partners at the same time. And a lot of people say, as long as people are aware, as long as people give their consent to this, then perhaps we could see something different working. And again, polygamy is an opportunity to see, does this actually work out? Is this a reputable model?
Right.
So that's why I think we're seeing the resurgence of polygamy. I do think that we definitely still need to continue having conversations about it and whether it works out. And I think what's really interesting about the framing of this particular episode is we get to see if it works in this society, but particularly with the present power dynamics in Western society, does it work for us
women?
Really? Does it work for us really? Because when it comes to polygamy, I often think of, the polities in the global south, for example, right? There's a long established history of polygamy. It's not something new.
It's not new.
There's loads of different countries in the world that there have been, matriarchal polygamous
100%.
relationships. There are patriarchal polygamous relationships. There are decentralized polygamous relationships, which are all just fancy ways of saying polygamy exists outside of the Western world. But given the interaction of capitalism, patriarchy, various forces of social inequality, can polygamy work, and can polygamy work well for women being seen as actual key stakeholders and being seen as still human, still humanized in these interactions? And I think the jury is still out, at least for me personally, and in this society, because of the interaction of all of these different forces, right? As much as we love to see our relationships as these safe havens outside of social forces, outside of capitalism, outside of patriarchy, they always leak in. The politics always leaks into our relationships. And it's no wonder that even things like polygamous relationships tend to be heavily over-sexualized. For example, we think about things like, sex, threesomes, foursomes. And even then, still things like the male gaze, like the example that you shared in the beginning, right, of this guy just coming and standing and saying, of course all the ladies want to be with me because I am an Adonis and I'm some kind of Greek god that everybody loves. Just really highlights that when we import something like polygamy into the Western world, into today's society, into, the social medias of the world, there's still a little bit of work to be done as to whether they can pan out and play out in a way that is beneficial, quote unquote, or at least mutually beneficial for women that choose to interact in polygamous relationships. But yeah, that's what
The jury's not out for me. I think the answer's no. The answer's no.
I was trying to be polite.
No. I think the answer's no. Personally,
she said absolutely not.
Yeah, because and this is not me coming against, because we've seen models of polygamy or examples of it in so many different cases, and you can argue that it actually does work. But my question then is, what do we see as a relationship working, and what do we desire from relationships? And I think for what the majority of people actually desire from relationships in the modern day that we are living in, polygamy as a model doesn't actually work to align with those goals and the desires for those outcomes. And the reason why I say that is I think to people who may have made polygamy work and the expectations which they may have been trying to live up to, in terms of if you believe that, let's say a man should be, you know, a caretaker to their children or present in their children's lives, right? How are you going to do that if you have 1 million kids, right? No.
Nick Cannon.
How are you going to do it?
Nick Cannon.
Realistically, you only have so much time in a day.
Whatever
but
you're
if
doing
that's
right
not
now, you should stop.
Exactly. But if that's not an expectation, then it's fine, because you having loads of kids who you're not a part of their lives, it's nothing you'd feel shame about, because it's not something you signed up to. Or you being able to financially provide for children or your partner, how are you going to do that with so many partners in this economic time? And so the reason why I say these things is it really does depend on your expectations and the standards you set within a relationship or from a romantic or for a romantic partner to me, and also what is your capacity to actually meet those things. And I think a lot of us, I mean, we discussed it last week, but think about how much a monogamous relationship, as in just being with one person, requires from us in terms of being there for their emotional needs. Should that be a standard that you set? Being there for their financial needs, should that be a standard that you set? It's tough to do for one person. Do most men, or do men in this modern time, have the capacity? And this is what the girl was asking in the TikTok, right? What is your leadership qualities? Do most men and most people, even women, have the capacity to be that to multiple people in their life at the same time? People are out here struggling to balance their relationship and friendships.
I mean,
so I think the reason why for me the answer is like, no, it doesn't actually work, is I think one, the way that we see it modeled right now, it just shows it benefits men.
To be
right?
fair, I've seen examples of polygamous relationships where there's more men in the relationship.
Oh no, I've seen that too, but I've also seen it with more men in the relationship, but the men also have other women that they are with, right? So I think to myself, are most people, and there's a reason why there's an overrepresentation, and I think more so the numbers are men who have more wives or men who have more women that they're intimate with than women having more men that they are intimate with, because for a lot of people the ownership is of the women's bodies, and the accumulation of the women is what gives them the I am an alpha male or I am the Adonis kind of mentality, when actually if women were to then, you know, collect men like Pokemon cards, people would be calling her a hoe. People would be calling her irresponsible. Think about the Nick Cannon situation. Not that he's polygamous, but think about how many people are out here blaming the women for having for having his children, even though they don't have multiple children. They have his children. He has multiple children. And yet the criticism still falls on the woman. Do you get what I mean? And so I think to myself, because of the modern system that we are living in, because people still have issues around women owning their sexuality, having agency over it and freedom, and whether that manifests as sleeping with those of people or being celibate and abstinent, people still have issue with that. I don't think polygamy works out in women's favor. Because should they actually adhere to the rules themselves in our Western culture, they would find themselves on the other receiving end of a lot of misogynistic hate and criticism.
For sure.
Right? So I think to myself, as much as we see it on social media, is it just a result of the expectations we have of relationships actually changing rather than, and also our hopes for whether our original or the traditional, whatever we have been told, those expectations can actually be met? Because I think back to exactly this, which is why I think it was very good that you mentioned infidelity first, because I think it's more so people saying, I do not believe in people being faithful. And so I might as well add infidelity to my expectations and allow it. If people are going to do it anyway, then I should kind of pad my heart and guard my heart by not being disappointed by it. So I should just allow it. Do you get what I mean? And I think if most people, and I'm not saying this for people who have, you know, really sat down and critically thought or feel like their sexuality is even inclined towards being attracted to multiple people and wanting to be intimate with multiple people. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are watching these things research, watching the social media content, seeing the TikTok lives or seeing the YouTube videos of people like, hey, I'm in a polygamous relationship, and then thinking, maybe I should just go down this route, because I've been disappointed by people cheating on me, or, you know, I've had men kind of feed me. Because I think the general gist sometimes that we see on social media, especially from in male-led circles, is men really struggle with this monogamy thing. So you might as well just let him have multiple partners so that he's not cheating on you because it's consensual. And I don't think many people actually want to sign up to that, but they're feeling pressured to have to sign up for that. Because if you don't sign up for it, then you have to admit that your partner cheated on you.
I think it's funny because when we even think about like polygamy and infidelity and whatnot, I love that you brought up this whole idea of the Adonis and the qualifications for polygamy, because in quite a number of different societies, one of the major qualifications for polygamy is resources. So if you are going to follow a patriarchal,
this is it,
polygamous relationship, you gotta have money. And I think it's funny because even when we went to Tanzania, it makes me remember one of the tribes that we went to go and visit, where polygamy was a thing in the Maasai tribe, right? Polygamy is a thing in that tribe. However, it is necessary for you to have the capital. You have to prove that you're able to provide for that particular person. And I think what's actually missing out of not just the polygamous discourse, but also relationship discourse is the provision element. I know we all get a bit, and we think about provision in terms of, does he pay on the first date? But in terms of sustaining a relationship and thinking about the models that we've seen, polygamy, and particularly the patriarchal polygamy relationships, require sustenance, maintenance, resources. Do you have the financial, and finances is a big thing, right? Do you have the financial prowess to take care of multiple women? If not, you can't, like, it's actually illegal for you to have multiple wives. And I think it's definitely a case of a lot of men wanting to have their cake and eat it too, right?
That's literally what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. But I'm trying to like, I'm trying to, what do you call it? Not necessarily give a pass, but I'm trying to understand beyond the whole like, oh, how does it benefit women in those specific like relationships? I think there is something to be said about, because there will be some people who actually think it does benefit women. And rather than being a devil's advocate, because one of my favorite sayings is that the devil doesn't need any more friends, not a devil's advocate. I think it is important to at least represent the viewpoint that they can work in very specific instances if that's your expectation for the relationship. So it's less so, I disagree with you. I actually agree with you 100%. I actually don't think polygamous relationships work. However, I do think it's important that for those that are engaged in polygamous situations to be very critical, but also give them the benefit of the doubt in that many of them have done their due diligence. And I think that there are some people that believe that people are capable of having non-monogamous relationships successfully. And I think that there is some evidence to support that. Whether I am convinced by it is a different story, but I think it's important to have that representation and do understand that I do think that there are some people who, okay, if that's you, you've come to this conclusion and you think that it benefits you, then fair enough. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's more so about, if you are going to subscribe to that and if you are going to see that content as well, then you have to remind yourself that not only does it change your relationship dynamic, but you have to do a complete overhaul of your understanding of relationship or your expectations for relationships in general. And I think it is unfortunate when we then hear within the same conversations about polygamy or people who are having polygamous relationships, traditional relationship expectations. And I'm thinking the two personally can't really work, even with the examples that I've personally seen of women who have multiple partners. They usually have the traditional expectations from just one. The rest of them play a different function. Do you get what I mean? The rest of their partners play a different function. And so it's more so are you ready to do the reconstructing, which comes with the entire mind frame you have about relationships? Or do you just accept polygamy because you're being told that that's just your only option right now because of the state of men? Do you get what I mean? And the state of masculinity, or the state of the way that these kind of echo chambers make you think men of our generation are thinking. And I think there's a lot of women who may be thinking, I might as well give up on my quote unquote unrealistic dream of being in a monogamous relationship because men are wired to cheat. or men, because of all the testosterone that's running through their body, will not be able to stick to just one person. And I think it's dangerous when rhetorics like that get to run wild and they become less about, you know, case studies and very, because I wouldn't say it's few and far between, but it becomes less about, oh, let's actually see, does this model actually work? And it's more so a trend and people trying to convince people, no, this is the future. And that's what I'm starting to see personally on like some of my social media feeds. This is the future of what relationships are going to look like. So either get with it or get behind. And it's like, actually, no, I don't think it's good to create this idea that lacks nuances and lacks disclaimers that this will actually change your entire family dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
And are you actually signing up to this properly? And so I think it's, for me, the polygamy thing is, because it's a system that's existed for such a long time. Honestly. Like I said, this conversation isn't about, is polygamy right or wrong? It's, does it work for the modern day woman? And I'm so unconvinced by all of the stuff that I have seen that it actually does, because I do think there are very few people who have the maturity right now in the social media sphere to be able to say, actually, there are still expectations that I have of this relationship. And I don't think most of us have the capacity to offer that to most women, or to most people, or more than one person, sorry. And then there's a part of me that's kind of like, well, if we're going to do with this whole, if we're going to do away with this whole let's not have expectations thing, who's actually going to suffer most? I don't think this ever really works out well for us in general, especially if, like you said, men are getting their cake and eating it too. If, like, I keep going back to this thing, if a woman is like, I'm going to start playing this game, they're going to be kicked off the board.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in a totally idealistic world where, you know, we were able to completely undercut, you know, traditional institutions of relationships and the nuclear family, then perhaps polygamy could work, at least in the Western civilization. But it would require a lot of unlearning, a lot of unpacking, a lot of this, all sorts of destabilization that I'm not really sure that many people are ready for. I think, look, I don't even think people are mature enough to handle the full extent of monogamous relationships sometimes. And I think polygamy, child, that's a whole nother thing to consider. But I think another thing to add into the mix around polygamy is these relationships don't exist in isolation as well. They are often done in community. So even in traditional polygamous relationships that exist outside of the West, it's very much an ecosystem, right? It's your wife is also our wife. It's we're taking care of kids together. Whereas when we think about the West, we're thinking about things like baby mama culture. We're thinking about things like established units of like two people coming together with different established units of two different people. So I think even when we're thinking about polygamy and like the modern woman and thinking about whether it is beneficial for her and if it's a pragmatic means to an end for a relationship, I think that it probably wouldn't work anyways, because we're all selfish, but the world is selfish. You're not
living in a system that supports it.
Exactly. Polygamy is one of those institutions, because it is a type of institution that relies on the strength of community and ecosystem and shared understanding as to who's playing what role, who's playing what function, but also in the multiplicity in those functions, right? Many people take on many different roles. So even traditional like father figures, they may be patriarchs for this particular family, but also for communities, right? They're elders in communities. And I just think that the way that society is set up right now, obviously you are very well within your rights to do whatever you like, by the way, as a disclaimer.
100%.
Like, if you are in a polygamous relationship, or if you are the kind of person that believes that for you, it works for you, then of course do whatever you like to do. But I think thinking pragmatically and thinking about some of the things that we'd like to achieve, at least for us personally, it probably wouldn't work. And I think that speaking at least to a personal reasoning as well is emotional bandwidth and emotional capacity. I know that there's the charge as well sometimes where folks kind of say, oh, if you can't understand a polygamous relationship, or if you find it difficult to understand that people can be loved by, many people, then you're insecure. And I think that I think that it's also interesting that you brought up earlier about the fact that, yes, we need to critically inspect and bring nuance to these conversations and these romantic setups. But I think it's fair to allow these things to exist without completely trying to attack people's points of views and discredit the fact that as people, because I don't think that desiring monogamous relationships is indicative of insecurity. I think it's, again, being accepting of differences. I think underpinning this whole conversation and conversations that we often have within allowing difference to flourish within communities and understanding differences is allowing difference to coexist without power dynamics and without trying to discredit each other. That's the real issue here. Like, I don't have any issues with polygamous relationships and you don't either. We just don't agree with them, or we don't think that that's something that's conducive to what we'd like personally. However, I think it is important that we acknowledge that these things can coexist. Yeah. Like, difference can coexist without pining for the top spot. And my biggest frustration oftentimes in these conversations is you don't get it, you're stupid, you're insecure, you're this. If that's the response that you're going to come with when we're having conversations about whether an institution, a structure, a social kind of organizational mantle works, then I don't think we'll ever really have productive conversations in life in general. At all. So yeah, polygamy is a weird one, man. Personally, 0 out of 10 for me, wouldn't recommend, because I like having one man. Keeping it a buck with you, like on the personal, taking it from the whole, like, you know, macro society, all that kind of stuff. Baby girl, I can't do that. You know, I don't have emotional capacity, and I'm happy to say that I don't have the bandwidth to be dealing with either another wife or another husband. Like, I'm struggling to, you know, sometimes it takes me a long time to call back my mama, you know what I mean? And it's like being realistic and also thinking about like how we are set up as people.
This is
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not personally, for me, I'm not set up. You know what I mean? Like, personally, I'm not set up to engage with more than one person in a romantic fashion. Perhaps I am brainwashed. Perhaps I don't like to think I'm brainwashed. I like to think of me being a person that's rational enough to have considered and then decided, right? I think there's the assumption when we think about polygamy and all that, oh, all you know is monogamy. How would you know if you haven't tried it? Well, I also know that, you know, fire will burn me without having tried it, because, you know, I'm tried and tested wisdom and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's also another important thing. I think many of us have actually seen polygamy like played out in different situations that are closer to us than we think, aside from social media. We've got friends or like relatives, for example, that have been in both consensual but also non-consensual polygamous situations. And for me personally, it is definitely a 0 out of 10.
100%. I think in terms of what you said about the community aspect is so right. If a polygamous relationship is to flourish, you must be in a society and in a community where it is not only like accepted but actually supported, right? Because if you are going to be someone who commits yourself to multiple people, we're not judging anybody, we're just giving you the real for real. If you are going to be somebody who commits yourself to multiple people, has multiple people committed to you, like I said, you're going to have to manage and rejig your expectations around what it is they actually give you in your relationship, right? And that is going to leave you wanting in some areas. It doesn't necessarily, because I mean, monogamous relationships, there are still places where people, the individuals, still lack stuff, or they're left wanting or needing more or needing effort in a particular area. But in this case, where somebody's attention is quite literally diverted into multiple directions, you're going to be left with spaces and gaps that need to be filled. If you do not have a governmental system, a health system, a financial system, and a community of support around you that can fill those gaps, you are going to be left almost stranded, right? Where it's like, who's going to pick up your... I sometimes think about like Nick Cannon's situation. Shout out to you, Nick. If one of his baby mums called him...
shout out to you, sir. What you're doing is wrong. No, I'm chilling. I'm trolling.
Well, I mean, sir. But I think to myself, if one of your, you know, partners call you and they say, hey, your child is sick at school, you got like 50 opportunities for that to be true about
that man.
Things across the country.
On Christmas Day is going
on tour. That's
the
thing. So it's like, how do you then show up for people? And if you do not raise your children in a system where this is normal, and they therefore have... I wouldn't even call it reduced expectations, but just different expectations and changed expectations for their father, they're going to grow up disappointed. Do you get what I mean? So I think to myself, because this is not a part of our norms and values, it becomes very, very hard to completely manage everybody's emotions, right? So this is why I'm saying I'm not completely like, well, I mean, I'm against polygamy, but I'm not criticizing polygamous systems like the Maasai tribe. Do you get what I mean? Where it's like, no, you guys have been doing this from the dawn of time and you've got a system. Everybody understands what is going on and they make it work. But unless there's a reason why the Maasai are themselves. There's a reason why they are themselves. You get what I mean? And also, unless you then subscribe to that culture, it would be hard to then make yourself a part of it unless you're born into it. Do you get what I mean? So I think to myself, with the popularization of this thing, or like the trends that I'm seeing on social media, we do not have one collective digital culture.
Exactly.
And if we're not careful and we are seeing these things on our For You pages and stuff like that, we will become not just confused, but genuinely crazed by this entire situation, because we no longer know what to expect and how to also vocalize. Especially people are then going to come with criticisms of you're just insecure. We then don't know how to actually vocalize. I have an expectation that you won't sleep with anybody else but me, and people not say that you're asking for too much.
Child,
when the law, the government, your workplace,
they've said,
your insurance policies,
they have said,
all say you got one wife. And I'm asking for that. But yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
No, man, there's even so much to say about that. But also, I don't think we can sustain polygamy in a society that still continues to objectify women. I just think just those kind of polygamous institutions or those systems, pseudo systems of governance where you see multiple wives, but they're very much seen as, it's given Thanos, like collecting rings. Do you know what I mean? Just collecting rings, collecting infinity stones, and then expecting her to perform the function of, you know, wifey or girlfriend or whatnot. And I think what really does frustrate me is when it comes to like lifelong relationships, sometimes polygamy and the conversations that we have about polygamy online just are devolved to sex and engaging in sexual activity and sexual behavior and having access to different people at different times and having access to different people's bodies at different times. Relationships are more than sex. It sounds so simple to say, but relationships are more than sex. They are more than having access to different people's bodies. It is more than legalizing or authenticating being able to have sex with multiple people. Polygamy comes with implications. If that's your setup and you say, you know what, I want to have sex with multiple people, then have sex with multiple people, but don't call it polygamy, because that's not what polygamy is. Okay, it is still, polygamy still comes with expectations.
There we
go. Polygamy still comes with requirements. Polygamy still comes with things that you need to fulfill, roles that you need to, as non-traditional as they are, right? They still come with expectations that need to be fulfilled. They still come with responsibilities. And I think sometimes many of us can want to be in polygamous situations because it absolves us of responsibility, but it does not. Okay, it does not. If you want to be carefree, and I think it's the trying to find to divulge the two, right? It's the sex and the polygamy. Okay, if you want to have sex with multiple people, then be that person. Okay, don't be coming saying, oh, I'm polygamous and all that kind of. If you know in your heart of hearts you want to have sex with multiple people, then run that race. Okay, don't come and start saying, oh, you're insecure because, you know, this is the way that I want to live and all that kind of stuff.
It is. You want to be sleeping around. It's all right.
You want to be outside, particularly when it is, for example, a man that wants to be in a polygamous relationship with multiple women, but not with multiple men.
And there we find the crux of the matter.
The crew.
Or when you want to sleep with multiple people, but to know that the woman you're sleeping with is also sleeping with multiple people pisses you off. You can't have ownership unless there are rules.
You can't have this cake.
You cannot have expectations unless I also lay my expectations for you. And I think what we're seeing is cake, eating it.
You can't have this
cake. It doesn't work that way.
It's not even cakes. It's multiple cakes. You're greedy.
100%. And you still want to have the cakes there. And you get pissed when people turn around and say, I'm not satisfied with this. Or they give you what you give them.
You know what it's like? You know when you go to a party? That's what it is. When you go to a party and there's like multiple cakes or multiple foods on display, somebody goes around with, and they get like a tray of multiple cakes. And then when somebody comes around and is like, oh, can I have a little bit of the cakes? Despite the fact that you have 10 cakes to yourself, you say, no, you can't have this cake. You, sir, are a fool, a thief, and a selfish person.
It is selfishness. And the same for women as well who may be doing it. I don't know many of them, but balance. But honestly, like we said, this is not about like saying if you are polygamous, then you're just wayward. Nah, it is to say that you're going to have to do a lot of deconstructing, reconstructing, communication, laying down of expectations, all of the things that we detail in terms of building intimate relationships to set a new precedent which everybody is okay with, because consensual polygamy requires consent, and people need to know what they are consenting to. To you people that think you are polygamous and you're using it, you're co-opting the title in order to just cheat and be doing helter-skelter. There's a special place at a place called Hades.
Hades.
We ain't gonna be there.
Do you know how funny that is? Hellfire. Hellfire.
Fiery pets. They call it hell. H-E double hockey, is there? Have a good time there. Tell Satan we said hi.
Tell him. Good afternoon, good morning. You know, they don't have the concept of time there. So
at all. Just tell him all the best, Lucy. But yeah, personally,
Lucille.
We hope that you enjoyed that conversation. We hope whether you're a woman, a man, non-binary folk, we love you, that you benefited from this conversation.
The non-binary folk will probably be looking at us like, look at you heterosexual.
But you know what it is about non-binary people? It's because there is also like, they have to kind of, their identity is something that they have had to come to terms with or grapple with or find language for and do all of these introspective things.
Exactly.
Sometimes introspection is something that people lack because they do not practice it. So I think sometimes with like people who live unconventional lives in terms of like people aren't used to it, they've had to do a lot of contending and work. You get what I mean? And so sometimes us heterosexual people, we are too familiar with ourselves.
Heteronormative. They said, wrap your bags, take them and go.
Go away.
Since y'all want to have these rubbish conversations, can you imagine, like, when this hits Twitter and the socials, they won't even be asking, will this work? It'll be like, there's 3 of you now. Who's going to pay on the first date?
But it's a valid question, though.
And that wraps up the To My Sisters episode of
Who's paying for the rent here? You know?
That's true.
Who's going to pay for these things? Who's going to do the dishes?
Who is?
Who's going to take care of the kids?
Is there a rota for sex?
Do you get what I mean?
That's the one bit that gets me, like...
What you gonna do?
On rota.
What you gonna do?
You just walk in and like...
What you gonna do?
I mean, if that's your...
Anyway, we are monogamous not just because of, you know, our human nature, as some of you will say.
Yeah,
maybe we are the flawed.
Yeah.
It is maybe we have the recessive gene. We are monogamous also by choice, because we have a ethos that we're trying to live by. Yeah. But you know, that may not align with the ethos you're trying to live by. So you discover yourself.
Honestly,
you know, you be free. But if this has sparked anything within you, we encourage you to continue to follow the To My Sisters podcast by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on all social media platforms at To My Sisterhood or To My Sisters on LinkedIn, because
hello, hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Hi, everybody. Is this
our
thing
resident
on?
LinkedIn creator?
Is this all coming from you? Anyways, the lovely lady in the pic, isn't she looking absolutely radiant? If you are listening to this on Spotify, or just come over and drop a comment and tell Claudia that she's a hot pick for a hot girl.
I have a feeling that the people that may find this will be criticizing me in the comments. So let them
try. Anyways, I'll be there. And you know I'll be there with my full government name team. Support us on LinkedIn. We are very much trying to create our professional arm of To My Sisters, where we are galvanizing the financial resources, the working resources, the capital to do the work that we want to do at To My Sisters. So follow us on LinkedIn, both individually, our lovely lady in the pink over here at Courtney Daniela, and me, Renee Kapuku, and the To My Sisters page on LinkedIn.
Yes. But you can follow us on our social media platforms as well, at Renee Kapuku, So Professional, and at CD Boating, the original CDB. That's where you can find me.
I like that.
And so, sisters, we encourage you to sign up to the mailing list so that we can send you weekly glow and grow tips that will never change.
Yes.
So definitely sign up. We will not spam you, we'll just send you love. All right. And buy our book, support the ting, get to know more about why we say you can't spread yourself thin with these kind of things.
Why?
Building intimate relationships, what goes into it. If you want to have a thought, buy the book, get it on Audible audiobook version.
So really, and for the sisters, we know that there are some international territories that are side-eyeing as they're listening to this. The folks in Canada, the folks in Malaysia, the folks in Germany. Sisters, we're working, and in the meantime, that Audible
boy,
gonna
come in strong.
Come on now, baby, come and listen to our dulcet tone. Support us, all right?
Well, we hope that you have an amazing week. And as always, sisters, keep glowing and growing.
We're Renee
and Courtney, your online sisters, and we're on a mission to help women across the world become the best version of themselves through the power of sisterhood.
That's why we've written To My Sisters, a guide to building lifelong friendship.
From working out how to achieve your dreams to setting boundaries and managing expectations, this essential handbook will show you how to fully embrace the power of friendship and community.
Packed with practical advice and personal stories from our decade-long friendship, we'll give you all the tools and advice you need to find, make, and keep lifelong friendship.
To My Sisters is available now online and at all good bookshops.